Alright. It's the sound of another Malarkey hour coming at you. This is your host, Matt. And joining me is my co-host, John. How's it going, sir?
What's up?
Not much, John. Let's get this week started. Sorry, I'm 25 minutes late, John. My clocks were set back in time. And with that lame joke, I indicate what we're going to talk about this week, John.
You set your cell phone clock 25 minutes late?
25 minutes late, John. Just because I could.
Yeah.
No, but, I set myself up with that lame joke so that I can.
It might work. I just didn't like.
Question. Can you see my screen at all?
Yeah.
You can?
Mouse
Like,
moving across the black screen.
Yeah. Okay, so you can't see. You know what's interesting?
All the Pornhub tabs you have open.
Yes. No, I was gonna attempt to show you something, but it's not letting me. Let me try one other thing. Maybe I should have worked this out a little bit more before we started, right?
Preparation's overrated.
Yeah, I figure we just wing it, right? Like we do. We do most stuff. Okay, you know what? It works that way. Huh? Okay, I'll toggle back and forth then between this. So this week we're gonna do. I want to say this is my favorite segment because we get to talk about something that I think we're both very passionate about, and that is movies. We both love going to the movies, John. Even though we can't do it currently, we love going to the movies. And
you guys remember the movies?
I know.
That's what I tell my nephews when I see
them. I don't remember how it is to go to a movie theater anymore.
Yeah, it's the same except you leave with disease.
This movie, in particular, I didn't get to see in the theater. I wish I did. I wish I was old enough to have seen this in the theaters, but I did see it later on cable. So, this week we're gonna do, obviously our, all-time favorite movie segment that we like to do, and this week we're gonna touch upon a classic, John, a 1980s classic, and I wanted to cover it this week because we're coming up on its. Let me see if I can do the math. 35th year anniversary since it was released. Do you know which movie we're gonna talk about, John?
Are we doing Heat again?
Yes, Heat again. No, John. He was. I think Heat was released. When was Heat released? Heat was released 25 years ago. Yeah. We should redo Heat again since it's coming up on the anniversary, right?
Did I get it right? Was it 95?
Yeah, I think it was 95. No. This we're gonna do the 1985 classic. It was actually released July 3rd, John. So we're a little ahead of the anniversary, and we want to do it a little ahead of time. But it is the 1985 85 classic, Back to the Future, starring Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, Leah Thompson, and the very weird Crispin Glover. Written and directed by Robert Zemeckis, and produced by the great Steven Spielberg.
I thought somebody else wrote it.
No, it was Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale who wrote it. They actually worked on. I want to say it was his first movie or his first major movie was Robert Zemeckis' Used Cars. So they were friends from that. So they decided, to keep working together, and they wrote this film treatment.
Never seen it. I know.
Oh, the first one, Used Cars. Yeah, and in fact, the whole idea came from Bob Gale thinking, what would it be like if I met my dad when he was a teenager? And that's how it, just from that idea, it spun off, this crazy story about, a kid and his weird older friend that he hangs out with all the time, weirdly enough. He goes over to his house, right? Like in the mornings before school. That's such a weird, such a weird morning routine. I don't know. When I was a teenager, I didn't do that before school.
When you were a kid, you didn't go to old crazy man's house.
In his garage, right? It's like Yeah.
He told me he had a time machine
But yeah, this crazy story about yeah.
and sugar-free chocolate candy.
Hey, at one point, they never really explicitly say it, but it seems like Marty McFly is doesn't like sugar, right? We'll get into it a little bit later on, but he has that line where he talks about anything sugar free. Uh, Maybe he's trying to watch his. What if Marty McFly had diabetes and he's trying to watch his blood sugar? Something they'll never get into.
Possible.
All right, but
I was gonna guess Parkinson's.
yes, Parkinson's.
I
um,
don't, I don't know.
no, but yes, it's crazy. It's just from that one idea. Bob Gale's. What if I had met my father? Spawned this crazy story about boy, his old friend, a DeLorean, and time travel, and from that sprung one of the greatest movies to ever be made.
Yeah, it's all right. That's good. It's one of those movies you probably. Yeah, I didn't see it in theaters either, but if you're alive, you've probably seen it.
I think it was one of those movies that you read about it. People went and rewatched it over and over. Um,
At the
and
theater.
plus it was different back then, right? Movies could do that. They can, they can be out for weeks at a time, be number one for like 10 weeks. We probably won't ever see that again in this environment. But yeah, it's crazy.
Maybe wait for Robert Downey Jr. to come back and be Iron Man.
Well, I mean, but those they have big opening weekends, and then they sort of peter out after like a month or so, right? They'll just make a shit ton of money that first weekend.
Yeah, I mean a month is kind of what I was
Yeah,
thinking.
but nothing like this where it just it spent 11 weeks at number one.
It's pretty good,
Yeah,
but it wasn't. That happened more often back then, like you said.
yeah, and in fact,
Because I think
there's
didn't Home Alone do something stupid like that too?
yeah, a lot of these like previous box office hits that's how they made all their money. They were just number one for so long. So in fact, what's crazy is their second weekend gross was higher than their first weekend. So that first weekend it came out, it was number one. It did great, but then it's just word of mouth.
Word of mouth,
Yeah, and their
which
second week was bigger.
which is still very effective.
Yeah,
That's why you see all the trailers and then they just stop when
yeah,
the movie comes
yeah.
out. It's weird because I think I tell you how I don't like Rotten Tomatoes, but you tend to check it.
Yeah.
It is weird. I think that score really does affect people seeing movies or not.
It
Like
might a little bit, yeah. Especially if they were like on the fence of seeing it, right? I don't think it affects if you're gonna see that movie regardless. If you're really like, oh, I can't wait to go see, you know, X movie. But I do think, yeah, you're right. If you're on the fence
funny.
or
Because it's funny, I'll go back and I'll check the scores on some movies that I really like. I like from years ago, and they'll have like 15%, and I'm like, whatever. I've seen it 10 times.
nice.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, hugely successful. Both box office and critical. For me, it's probably one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time. That's up there. I've probably seen this movie, you know, probably close to as many times as I've seen something like Heat. It's probably in my top 5 most watched movies. Um,
It's a movie that. Sorry, I keep clearing my throat. I think it's this fucking sugar-free chocolate I'm eating.
you're like Marty McFly with the sugar-free options there.
Yeah, that's the first like I tried. I told you I tried it for the first time right before we were recording.
Yeah.
But anyway, the hell was okay? I was gonna say I think we saw it so many times because plus it was on TV
It's on
all the
cable.
time.
Yeah. TBS,
It had,
TNT, right? For the most part.
yeah, it was like marathons, just like
One,
all
two, and
three.
three.
Seemed
Yeah.
like all three of them played back to back every weekend forever.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, which was funny
It's,
seeing it on cable TV because if you watch it on like on Blu-ray or DVD, it was like a weird trait for some of these movies back in the '80s. But you forget how much. Oh, this one doesn't have it as much as some other ones, but for the rating that this had, there's a lot of cussing, or at least it
yeah.
just seems more vulgar. I mean, you don't see it
Was
as much
there
on cable TV, but
was there PG-13 yet or no?
PG-13 wasn't invented until I believe Poltergeist. So Steven Spielberg. And it's funny.
I like how you say invented.
Well, yeah,
I don't know.
they
No, I
invented the
know. It's just like
PG-13. I don't think they went to a lab and like went to this rating, but yeah, they
uh,
came up with it because of Poltergeist. Because it was one of those.
I always think of something that's like cut a ribbon and take the sheet off. It's like,
No,
that is my latest invention.
yeah, because Spielberg would really push the envelope, with a PG rating. There wasn't any nudity or
Incest.
or sex in the movie. But
I said incest.
but there's a lot of cussing, right? So it or
Yeah.
not even cussing. Sometimes it's just the subject matter itself. Especially like you think about some of the movies that had PG ratings, like Indiana Jones, the Raiders of the
What do
Lost
they say?
Ark.
Shit. They say shit and asshole a lot, right?
Yeah, and then just the violence in itself, Raiders of the Lost Ark, or even Temple of Doom, right? Temple of Doom has a guy's heart come out of his chest. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean so it's crazy. So, yeah, that's one of the things that you forget about if you grew up watching it on cable. Like I know I did. I know you did as well. You were watch it unrated and you're like, oh crap, this movie has more cussing than I realized.
Yeah. Actually, what year did you say it came out? The PG
85.
13?
Oh,
This
PG
says
13.
80. Yeah. This
PG.
says 80. This I'm not trying to correct you, but I'm saying 84.
You see
But
84.
maybe they got like grandfathered into the PG rate.
Well, you know what? I don't know if this was PG 13 or PG. I think this is PG.
Yeah, it was PG.
It was PG,
I,
right?
I
Yeah.
checked it. I thought the same thing because of the cussing too.
Yeah.
I was curious, and yeah, it said PG, and I was like,
Okay.
So I thought I kind of figured it hadn't come out yet, but it could have been right on the border where it was like
Right.
maybe they had already gotten approved or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's
Aren't those people like they are like all anonymous and private, right?
yeah,
They
for
rate
whatever
the
reason
movie.
they're more secretive with that than like anything else, which is weird. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I guess they don't want a mob of angry movie goers to come, to their houses demanding why they rated a certain movie a certain way. I don't know. Who knows?
Should do that with the Federal Reserve.
You know what? But that's crazy, right? Like there's such a secretive. I think there's even like a documentary that came out like I want to say like 10 plus years ago where they try to find the people who vote on the ratings, the MPAA. It's like super secretive. Like it was
The whole
weird. Like
thing.
almost like they were stalking them.
They're the same people that control the supply of corn.
That's what it is.
I don't fucking know. No idea.
Yeah. But
Or was it orange juice prices?
yes. No, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cuss in this movie. So we follow a, let's talk a little bit about the craft of this film. Like I was playing while I'm playing in the background on mute, but even that's just that opening scene. I always thought Zemeckis is his biggest talent is he has his ability to tell a story without without words. Like you see it in the you see it here in the intro where he shows
I've seen people do it with sign language.
sign language.
Yeah.
So you see him tell
We're each missing on our jokes.
No, but you see him tell like the story with just within a few a minute or two with this opening sequence where he's going through the garage and dock and telling his story and this crazy doctor who he comes from a rich family, but which makes him eccentric, John. That's the reason you can call him eccentric, because he's rich. But essentially, this guy who burned through his family's fortune, trying to, essentially you find out obviously he was trying to invent this time machine, but for anybody who's seen from the outside, it's like, what is this guy inventing, right? He's just sitting in his broken down mansion, doing God knows what with that kid, right?
Yeah.
And obviously you find out he's trying to he's creating the greatest invention in human
on
history.
the Michael Jackson documentary now.
Yes. But he tells his whole story on just that, just with that intro. It's fascinating, right? And he's done it in his other movies. I the other one that comes to mind, which I love that. I think I've told you this. The first 15
You're talking
minutes.
about the intro with the clocks.
Yeah, with the clocks. Yeah.
And okay.
Yeah, it's just the way he goes through. He tells a whole story. Just going over. He's showing all these contraptions. So he's already setting the stages. Whoever this place belongs to, this guy obviously has all these contraptions that work on its own. Essentially has this what they call it, a Rube Goldberg device, where he has all these things go, and essentially it's just to pour out dog food for his dog. But yeah, you're going through everything, and you're seeing newspaper clips, and you're seeing and essentially he's setting the stage. It's gonna be about time, right? He's all these clocks, and then I guess he's working on which is never really explained. Remember at the end of that scene where Marty's talking to Doc, and he says all my clocks are set back 25 minutes. My experiment was a success. It's like, what was he experimenting with?
Yeah. I thought about that too. I was like, did he figure it out already and do something?
They never explained
that's all. I mean, obviously he was excited that was
working, right?
Yeah, so it's like he had already kind of done some kind of tests.
Yeah. There's a lot of little weird things like that never get explained.
Yeah.
Like you see these looks from Doc where, one of the weirdest ones when they're when he sends Einstein back forward a minute at the beginning of the movie, and he's looking at Marty. Marty's trying to go away a little bit, and he gives him this weird look. Like Doc has these weird looks throughout the movie that he never really explains, or you just things that you never really get explained about him. Or even that look, remember at the end where Marty's telling him his dad finally stood up to Biff, and Doc goes, he's never done that before. He goes, he's never done that before, and he's just he's gonna say something. He goes, oh, never mind. He doesn't. Obviously, you can infer he's thinking, oh, this is gonna change the future, but there's always something going on behind Doc's.
Yeah, that's exactly what I got out of it. It's oh, he's never done that. It's like,
yeah.
Well, now it's gonna alter something.
I think there's a I wouldn't want them to do it, but there is a interesting, if it's done right, an interesting movie on Doc's history, right? His life before Marty, before he started hanging out with this kid. You sort of wonder. I mean, granted, you almost don't want it to happen because it's better for that mystery. But I've always wondered how was Doc before all this, or even during that time between 1955 and 1985 when he invents the time machine.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot going on behind those crazy eyes of his.
He looks exactly the same in 1955.
Yeah. Hey, what's crazy when you see the cast now? Everybody looks older. Obviously, there's Michael J. Fox. Unfortunately, obviously he has Parkinson's, so it makes him look even older. I think at times, and Leah Thompson looks older, and but Christopher Lloyd looks exactly the same as he did back in 1985.
I don't like the John Mulaney bit?
Yeah.
Everybody should Google that.
Yeah. Back
to the Future, John Mulaney.
Yeah.
I can't even do it justice, but it's funny. Where he's trying to pitch the movie. What does he say? He goes, talking about Doc. He's like, so is this guy? He's young. He's talking about Doc. He's like, no, this guy's either 40 or 80.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he does make a good point. He's like, they never explain how they became friends.
No, they never. You know what? I think they tried to, but Yeah, they never really explain like why is this obviously older man hanging out with this kid, like what you
Uh,
know I mean maybe Marty did something, maybe he you know he broke into his house. I don't know, who knows what Marty did in his rebellious teenage
see, like,
years.
yeah, you get the screen up right there, right?
Yeah.
See how they're rolling the tires, that scene before they take off at the mall. They
Mm-hmm.
hit 88.
Yeah.
So the car doesn't actually have to go 88. It just has to rev,
It just has
and
to
it,
ref.
it just has
Yeah.
to, like, it just has to, the wheels just have to accelerate
I believe they do.
because it's not actually going 88.
No.
It
Actually,
just,
in
yeah,
fact,
you're just burning tread on the floor for like all the way into what, 50, 60 miles per hour.
well, remember in what was it in part two where the lightning hits it? It wasn't going 88 technically. It was just spinning.
Yeah, but weren't they already flying?
No, in,
Or
in,
no?
in part two.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. It wasn't going 88.
Well, I mean they're up in the air, right? So I mean the lightning just hit it, but I think it was just spinning. So I mean, who knows? I mean, there's a lot. It was interesting. I was reading a an article randomly, and this guy went back and he writes for one of these, like I don't know, it's Popular Mechanics or one of these like science magazines, and he did an analysis on some of these scenes where the car's traveling and supposedly traveling 88 miles an hour, and he determined, I think in the last scene where he gets hit by lightning, he determined it wasn't really going 88 miles an hour. Even here in this first one, it was actually close. Just based on the evidence in the obviously in the movie. Um, he determined it was probably going like 60 something miles an hour. I don't know. He did a lot of math that's way above my head. Um, but
Yeah, because I mean, he drops the car or lets the car go after it's already what, like 50, 60 miles an hour,
yeah,
releasing the wheels.
yeah,
But then when they send it back later, he has to actually go 88. And then
yeah, yeah. He's not burning rubber, right? Yeah.
yeah,
But no, yeah. So it's it is crazy. You have the how quickly we get into this world. All right, we get we have Marty, you know obviously going to school, waking up, doing his weird morning routine he does where he goes visit his dog and does God knows what at his garage, and then he goes to school, gets busted for being late, for the fourth day in a row, right? He's tardy. You meet a little bit of his family, but then that night he goes and meets up with Doc. This scene, that scene where he goes back in time, it's one of my favorite scenes in like all movies. So there's just something about that whole scene itself, right? From the him getting to the Twin Pines Mall, the review of the DeLorean as it comes off the truck, right? Doc telling essentially it's an exposition scene, right? He's just telling them the plot, but it's so well made that you don't realize how, like, oh yeah, you're just all the other characters are doing is just talking about the plot, but it's so well made that you don't care. Usually these scenes are boring, right? But it's just done with such craftsmanship that it doesn't matter. These are hard scenes to do. It's that they tell you the whole plot of the movie, and however many minutes this scene runs, right? 5 to 10 minutes. But it sets up the whole movie.
yeah,
It gives you the whole logic behind how time travel is gonna work in this movie, and then in subsequent in all the future sequels, how they're gonna treat time travel.
a part always kind of bothers me,
Which one?
and it's bothered me for a very long. It's bothered me for a long time. It's the he's got the three clocks. It's like where you are, where you're going,
And where you
and
been?
where you're where you are, where you're going, where you've been.
Uh huh.
And then he's trying to show him examples. It's all Declaration of Independence or right,
Yeah, yeah.
see this, and then he's like, witness the birth of Christ, and I'm like, scientists don't believe in that.
That's what's bothering you.
Yeah, it's actually bothered me since like high school. But those are deep. Those are deeper issues.
uh, John just revealed he doesn't believe in our Lord Jesus Christ, our Savior. Um,
I said scientist.
that you're right. I'm sorry. Yeah, John is obviously not a scientist, so he's speaking for scientists. You're right. Isn't it like something like 90 something percent of scientists don't believe in God, right?
Sounds right.
Yeah. Um,
Sure, it's over 90%.
that's a weird survey to have, right? It's like, do you believe in God? Nope. Okay, moving on. uh,
Like Stephen Hawking made me feel the best though. He said, "Our brains are like computers, and when they're done, we're done."
that's a sort of poetic way to put it, right? Just like, yeah, that man was always a cheery guy to go to when you're feeling down and scared of your own mortality. Just go to Stephen Hawking; he'll make you feel better.
I didn't finish it, but Bill Burr had it on his last special when he was talking about him. That was funny. Where he's like, the guy was a bummer. Again, I'm not doing it justice. It's like in the year 20 something, there will be no more apples. He's like, oh, what can we do about it? It's like, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
It's like, because I'm glad he's dead.
Yeah. No, but yeah. I mean, it's you mentioned scientists. This movie just the science in this movie is filled. Was always interesting too. Like obviously one of the more famous lines within this movie and even within this scene is the when he talks about how much power it's gonna require when Marty's like, this thing is nuclear, and he's like, well, it requires to get the 1.21 gigawatts of power that he needs to go back to the future. That's always cracked me up. There's something specific to that number, right? Like there's sort of like a lyrical quality to 1.21 gigawatts.
Yeah,
it just rolls off the tongue when he says it, and it's funny. It's funny because the way he mispronounces gigawatts, right?
You want those hard consonants, I guess.
Yeah, and he even mispronounces gigawatts, which I think gigawatts works better, right?
Yeah.
It made me wonder, and I looked it up. How much power is 1.21 gigawatts, John? So I looked up some few statistics. Now the closest that I got is 1 gigawatt. So this is how much power 1 gigawatt, which is a little bit less than 1.21, is, right? So essentially, 1 gigawatt's a billion watts, John. It's a billion watts. So how much?
Nothing.
So how much power would you get from 1 billion watts? So you would power 3.125 million photovoltaic panels. So these are panels that you could use for solar energy, I guess.
Maybe. I was like, well, could it turn on a blender?
It could power 412 utility scale wind turbines. Remember those? I don't think they have them here, but I think out in California and some other states where there's more wind, they have these big turbines with these, to power. So 412 of those big suckers. 110 million LED lights.
100 of what? How many?
110 million LED lights. It is roughly.
How many of those wind turbines could it do?
412.
Seems low.
That's how many of those would produce that 1 billion watts. 412. It's roughly 1.3 million horses, John.
I like how I just don't know, so I'm just like, seems low.
Well, the conversion, essentially 1 horsepower is about 746 watts. So, do the math there, John.
No.
It's about 2,000 Corvette Z06. So if you're into cars, it's about 2,000 of those. And if you are one of those energy guys who doesn't want to pollute the environment and wants to conserve, the planet, it's about 9,090 Nissan Leafs.
I'm very low energy.
Are you really? 9,090 Nissan Leafs. That's how much.
I think I'm doing my part.
So there's a little history behind that science. The 1.21 gigawatts of power that will require for you to go back to the future. That is that's how much some real life examples. So yeah, from there, Marty goes back to 1955 just coincidentally because Doc Brown thought of that was the night that he invented time travel. It's the time he hit his head on the side of the sink, and he came up with the flux capacitor, which is the whole thing that makes time travel possible.
Right. Just looks like a thing in a box, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which the cool thing about it is it's so easy to replicate, right? You get some LED lights and you get like one of those shadow boxes, and you put it together and you can replicate it. It's a cool part if you're gonna do a Halloween costume from Back to the Future. But it's so simple to design, right? It's like a Y, yeah.
Well,
Like
what would your costume be if you're carrying it around?
Have you Doc Brown?
You're a time machine repairman.
Right? Yeah, just go the other way. So Marty gets transported back to 1955, particularly a farm. And Doc sets it up, right? He says, back in the day, that mall was all farmland, and so when he transports back in time, he runs into the farmer's barn, and the farmer he's this weird pine tree breeder,
Yeah.
and an interesting thing happens. I'm sure you've noticed this, but for anybody who hasn't, when Marty, runs away from obviously that crazy farmer trying to shoot him, he runs over one of his
right?
he runs over one of his pine trees, so that he had two and now he only has one. So when he goes back, the Twin Pines Mall is now called Lone Pine Mall because he altered the future. So
Yeah, you might have even told me that.
Yeah.
I noticed it the last couple of times because I was like, what did they?
Yeah.
What changed?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a nice little Easter egg there on that there's always consequences to every action, kids. So that's one of them. So yeah, he goes back and he bumps into his father coincidentally. It's a small town. Bumps into probably the nerdiest fucking person in the history of movies. All right, this guy. Crispin Glover definitely picked
Probably the most spineless.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, at one point we see him walking down the hall and fucking four guys are kicking him in the ass, literally, right? It's such a demeaning scene where they're just four guys just following him around and kicking him in the ass, literally kicking him.
Kids can be mean.
Yeah, this guy. Yeah, you're right. This guy does not have a spine. So he runs into his father and he sees his father's interaction with Biff, a younger Biff. And he starts seeing, hey, nothing has changed, right? His father was always this way, and sort of a loser, and I think he's a little embarrassed for him, right? He's I think he sort of takes it upon himself. He's like, I need to help this guy. This is my father, I need to make sure this guy isn't a total loser.
Well, he doesn't do it until he knows, right? Or does he start to help him before that?
Well, he follows him, right? And then he follows him into...
Well, he's more interested.
Yeah, and then he follows him and he realizes his father has a very interesting, hobby, which is climbing trees and spying on women undressing. So...
Right.
And from there, obviously his, during the beginning of the movie, you learn that, the way that the dad and the mom met is that their grandpa ran him over with his car. So
was he spying on the mom?
He was spying on another girl across
I was
the
gonna
street.
say it's just some other chick, right?
Yeah, it's another girl. Yeah.
Yeah.
And but because Marty was there, he pushes him out of the way, and instead of his father getting run over by his grandfather, he gets run over by his grandfather. And the grandfather probably one of the funniest lines in the movie where he's like, "Hey, I hit another kid. Like, how many kids has this fucker hit?"
Another one of those damn kids ran into
our car. It's like, how many? It sounds like this is not the first time he's run over a kid.
Yeah.
But he sounds more annoyed than concerned, right? It's
Yeah.
like, like it's gonna ruin his day. He's like, God damn, I gotta deal with this fucking unconscious kid.
It's no liability in 1955.
Nah, they didn't care. Yeah, in fact, if Marty was from that time and his parents would have found out, they probably would have punished him for daring to get in front of an adult's car, right? That's just how
Yeah.
things were for kids back then. It's like,
Yeah. I always liked that, even though I never finished it. That first episode of Mad Men where the guy hits the other guy's kid, and
yeah,
it's just like it's totally justified.
yeah, yeah. It's a weird time, right?
It's, just it's almost like thank you for hitting my kid,
Yeah.
and then you yell.
Yeah. Yeah. But so yeah, so Marty essentially takes the place of his dad, and he wakes up, 9 hours later, and he hears his mom, so he thinks, oh, I'm back in 1985, but then he finds out he's still stuck, back in 55, and his mom is younger, thinner, and pretty hot, right?
Yeah, Leah Thompson.
Yeah, Leah Thompson's nice hottie. So that brings up a lot of confused feelings within Marty. Right? He sees his younger version of his mom who's hitting on him, and he's like he doesn't have any pants, and you find out Marty's mom's sort of a a loose woman, so to speak, right?
Yeah,
um,
little bit.
yeah. So she seems a little too happy to have a boy in her room with no pants on.
Yeah,
So, but eventually Marty tracks Doc down at his house, and he finally convinces him because he's able to explain to him the flux capacitor that he is indeed from the future, and they go on their way on how we're gonna get him back. So at the beginning of the movie we see a flyer being passed around on the celebration of when the clock tower got hit by the lightning, which is this is a small town when they celebrate fucking lightning hitting a building, right? So that's
Oh.
that's the biggest part of history in this town's history. Yeah, electricity hitting a random building in their town. But
right.
but obviously that provides the
Where they film it, like Universal.
Universal Studios.
I was gonna say it looks exactly like something they'd film there.
Yeah. In fact, if you take the studio tour, you'll pass it. So
I'm sure I have. It's been a long time.
yeah, yeah. It looks different. I went not too long ago, and it looks a little different. I mean, it actually looks very similar, but obviously they moved a lot of things around. But I mean, you see the clock tower. It's like, oh, it's right there. It's it's pretty cool that they still kept it up, even though like I don't know for what purpose, right? It's like, I mean, I'm sure they might film some stuff, but it's hard to like once, I think this movie pretty much made it, recognizable. I don't know if you can really use it for too much, otherwise
I thought they had used it for a few things, though.
maybe they have, yeah, but obviously because they know exactly because of the historical, you know, nature of that clock tower being hit by lightning, they know the exact time when electricity will hit somewhere. So Doc knows, okay, that electricity will be enough to generate the 1.21 gigawatts of electricity that he requires for that time machine to
Would you trust the accuracy of
that is one of those things I want to talk about on like things. We can talk about it right now, but yeah, obviously the clock stops at a certain time, but if you look back on it, there's no second hand on that clock, right? So I mean, he's leaving himself a full 60 seconds of like, that's a big gap, right? Of you could be wrong by at least 60 seconds.
Right.
But no, we could go over some of the more like, how did that happen?
A lot of things that have to go right.
Yeah. Yeah. But obviously, once they figure that out, Doc goes, okay, we're good. Just stay here in my house. Don't leave. Don't interact with anybody. We're good. End of movie, right? But then obviously he finds out that Marty already altered the future by being hit by that car. So, the rest of the movie is about him making sure that his parents have sex, right? That's how he spends his. I've never seen a movie where a man is so eager to make sure that another man and a woman have sex, but essentially that's what Marty does the rest of the film.
No.
You're
not. You didn't keep your Pornhub membership?
No, I didn't.
Happens way more than you think.
So Marty goes off and essentially becomes the what is that classic story? I'm blanking on what is that story when one of the characters is trying to help the other. I forgot that classic story. I don't know if it was Shakespeare or another. The guy with the nose.
Character's trying to do what?
Where when one character is trying to help out the other character, like essentially, Cyrano de Bergerac. Remember that story?
That's Shakespeare?
That was not Shakespeare. That was. What was the name of?
So that's just a term for when any character's trying to help any.
No, it's a play. It was written by Edmund Rostand. So you remember that story where essentially, one character because he's not he has a big nose. He's not the best looking guy. He helps another character, sort of woo another woman. Because he knows how to speak to him, but he's not the best looking guy. So essentially, this is what Marty does with his father. He becomes his Cyrano de Bergerac. He's gonna help him woo his own mother, right? Which is another weird thing, right? It's like he's helping his father bone his mom, but that's what he does. He needs to do this, otherwise, him and his siblings will be no more. They won't exist. Yeah.
I mean that's.
So obviously he knows when that moment happens, right? When she knew that this was the man she was gonna marry. They had to dance at the Enchantment Under the Sea dance. So Marty spends the rest of the film making sure that George goes to that dance with Lorraine. But like you mentioned, George McFly has no spine, John, and he does not make it easy for Marty. Every attempt that Marty makes to essentially make his father look cool so that Lorraine would go to the dance with him fails.
I always find a little bit also weird. It's just like, I'm gonna get real handsy with my mom and then you come. But I mean that's what it is, right?
We'll get to that. I know you're not. Yeah, we'll get to that.
Like that's the plan.
We'll get to that. But no, first Marty, he gives him some lines on, go ask her out, right? So, he goes into the into that that hip what would they call it back then, the like mod shop, or I don't know what would you call it, back in the 50s. I
call them 50 diners.
50 diners. You think they called it 50 diners back in the 1950s, John?
Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, he goes in there, fails miserably. Biff comes in, embarrasses him like Biff's nature is. But then, Marty's there to save him. He trips him, and then we get that famous, chasing around around that city, the main city square, which ends with, Biff crashing in his very nice car into a truck full of manure.
Yeah.
Which makes Lorraine fall even more in love with Calvin Klein, right? Or Marty.
Manure turns her on.
Manure really turns her on, yeah. Yeah, so because of that, Lorraine ends up asking Marty to dance instead. So that's where Marty devises the plan that you just mentioned, which is, it is a crazy plan. This movie has a lot of those, like, what ifs. What if everything went through the way it's supposed to, and the implications are very dark, right? So Marty devises this plan with his dad, George, where he'll take Lorraine to the dance. But like you mentioned, while they're in the car, he's going to get very handsy with her. So it's like, was Marty prepared to, like, essentially get inappropriate with his own mom? Like, I never understood that plan.
I don't know. I don't know what his backup plan was.
Well, no, I mean, not even his back. I mean, that's his main plan. Like, what is he gonna do to make her, be so repulsed by him? Like
Well, you
what?
can see
How?
what he's trying to do, but just like subtly like park. You thought that would make her uncomfortable, but
Well,
it
you know
doesn't.
what? Maybe that's what it is, right? Maybe he didn't realize how much of a horn dog his own mom was.
Well, that's what it is. Like he's surprised because
Yeah,
like you drink too. And it's
yeah,
like you smoke, and, like
yeah,
everything. Like
yeah.
I think he's like,
You,
ah, none of this is gonna work well.
you think his final like he's gonna pull out his dick, and then she's like, "Ooh." He's like,
And
"Shit."
why
Uh,
can't we keep our PG rating?
right. But luckily he is saved by Biff coming in and attempting to rape her. Right. So Biff comes in, and you realize Biff's really the real hero of this story because if Biff hadn't come along with his rapey tendencies, Marty would have had to had sex with his own mom. So
I don't think he would have done that.
no way, Biff. Biff is the real hero of the story. No, because she
Uh,
does kiss him, and she does say it's like kissing her brother,
yeah, but even if it was, I think he would have figured something else out. He knows that's
right? But luckily,
not
Biff comes in. Gets
very
he gets
very
very
aggressive.
yeah, he gets very handsy with Lorraine, right? And George, comes along right on cue, but doesn't realize it's Biff, and before he does, it's too late, and Biff has him by the arm, and but that's when George rolls some balls, John. That spine finally materializes in his body, and he knocks Biff the fuck out, and now it seems like he's the most popular guy in school, right? People are asking, "Are you gonna run for president? Are you gonna do this and that?" It. If I
So,
if I had
shows you
known
that
that was
we've always ran a. This country's always been stupid.
and it makes you like it's like
Very, very in the moment.
it makes you wonder like is that all it takes to become the cool kid in school? I would have knocked the shit out of the bully a long time ago when I was in school.
Remember after 9/11, Mayor Giuliani,
Right, that is true.
are you gonna run for president?
Yeah, but so yeah, I mean, and then that's pretty much the end of that. But he still doesn't make him kiss during that dance. So because one of the band members obviously fucked up his hand trying to get Marty out of that trunk, he has to play. He essentially has to invent rock and roll to get his parents to kiss, right? So that's all it takes is for Marty to invent rock and roll. So that's what Marty does. He invents rock and roll in 1955, which I believe is historically accurate, if I remember my history correctly. No, we had that great scene, right? That Johnny, I think that Johnny B. What's crazy about that scene, that Johnny B. Good scene, is they almost cut it. They filmed it, and the director he was looking at
A
it.
longer movie than I thought, actually.
Yeah, it's about 2 hours. Um, but yeah, Zemeckis wanted to cut it out. He thought, it's too ridiculous. But luckily, they actually, it's one of those things like, a lot of people think, oh, it's a waste of time. But they tested it for audiences, and a lot of audiences, they indicated that was their favorite scene, so they kept it in. So
You know that new sound you've been looking for?
yeah,
Yeah, that's a good scene.
it's a great scene. So Marty was finally, he's finally able to get his parents to bone in the future. They kiss, and it ensures that they're gonna get married and have 3 kids, and Marty will continue to exist. So, it kicks off into I feel it's one of the greatest, one of those great action scenes in movies when he arrives at the clock tower, and you have all the sequence of events where everything that can go wrong goes wrong, right? You have Marty trying to tell Doc, about the future, so he saves himself. You have Doc tearing up the letter, like, oh no, like now he's not, he's gonna get killed still. But then you have lightning striking a tree, and a tree limb coming down, and breaking that line. So now Doc has to go up to the clock tower, and you know and as he's pulling on it, he almost falls right at a certain point, and then as he's pulling on it, it's too short, so he has to pull on it, and then he disconnects it.
It's
Well,
basically the biggest action scene you're gonna see in the movie.
yeah, but all the beats are there. I mean, it's such a great scene. Zemeckis is so good with action too. He knows, you get a great sense of the geography of that place too. You always know where everything is, and it's he builds he builds on suspense, so well. At one point the car won't start, and everything just works. From that, and then
It's a
finally
really bad look for the DeLorean. I know that's not what brought it down, but it never. It seems to
it,
not start a
the
lot.
starter. Yeah, there's issues with the starter, right?
It seems to fuck up quite a bit.
Yeah. It's funny. Apparently, John DeLorean, the guy who invented DeLorean, he was very happy with the fact that he uses DeLorean. So I don't think it bothered him that much that they depicted his.
Probably also on cocaine.
Probably, yeah, yeah, probably. Um, uh, but apparently he did send a letter after the movie was released, thanking them for essentially making it's probably the most famous car in history, right? The DeLorean, in movie history at least.
Yeah, you go through like what else would there be? What do they drive? Like it's Smokey and the Bandit or something?
Yeah, but like it's not something that's you can like top of your head, right? Like, but with Back to the Future, like the DeLorean, like that it. And in fact,
Yeah.
I mean, who knows if they hadn't used the DeLorean, would the DeLorean still be known to this day? It probably wouldn't be those weird like, oh yeah, remember that weird car, the DeLorean, but it wouldn't be. Essentially, generations of kids are gonna know what a DeLorean is based on this movie. Um, so
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's.
I remember my friend's neighbor used to have one.
Aren't they like super heavy?
Yeah, they're not great. They're not that fast either. They're just cool looking.
Yeah. And it's one of those like the design that those Golf wings, actually you get better clearance. It looks like it's, it takes up a lot of space. I think it's a little deceiving. If you look at the hinges, they actually gives you a better clearance than a regular car.
They figured that out.
Yeah.
That would just been stupid.
Yeah.
You can hit a car every time you park.
Right. Yeah, but no. So yeah, so Marty, starting from that, he obviously he makes it back through time, and that's another thing. It's funny, like they're essentially doing this in downtown. I know they're going back in the middle of the night, but there's still no telling that anybody's gonna be on that road, right? So like I always think like how when he goes back, there's that drunk bum sleeping there. Like what if that guy was crossing the street and Marty just like runs him over with his DeLorean.
Probably the least of his concerns.
Yeah.
He is about to be erased from existence.
Yeah.
And stuck. Well, I guess after that.
After that he's not. He's more worried about getting to Doc in time, right? So he does one of the most, one of those other things where you're like, huh, why didn't he do this? Like he goes back 10 minutes before.
I give himself 4 hours.
Yeah, it's like why not give himself a little bit more time? At least an hour, right? Like I know he doesn't want to get there too early, but I mean at least an hour, right? So that he has some time to like maybe go take a shit.
I would think too, like what would happen even if he did get there? He's got to warn him without running into his other self.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's also an obstacle. So,
why
did he think those 10 minutes were gonna
exactly like if he gets there if he gets there right before the Libyans, he's still gonna run into his old self.
Right.
So he doesn't want to do that because then that alters the fact. What if then that Marty doesn't go back in time? So then it creates that paradox. Well, then he never went back in time, so he never came back. So that's a lot of things to consider, right? That's the thing with time travel. It's like nothing. A lot of these things won't make sense. But
yeah, I've always fell asleep in time travel class.
But he arrives just in the nick of time to watch his friend get shot for the second time and murdered.
Maybe that's all he really wanted.
Right? He don't want to miss the show. he's like I didn't get a good angle the first time. I want to get a better angle of seeing Doc. Get murdered. But no, he you know, when he gets down to him, and you know another thing, it's funny. Like you see the aftermath. You know, another thing that you know you can ask, like, what happened to the Libyans? They run into that photo, little shop there. It's like like they're not dead, right? It wasn't like that bad of an accident. So like, why are they not more concerned about those guys getting out of that car and still coming after them?
I don't think terrorists are usually that easily discouraged.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, yeah, it's like, well, Bob, it didn't work. Let's go home.
Yeah,
um,
it's a common name in Libya, right,
yeah,
Bob?
Bob. Yeah, but so Marty goes down and he's grieving his old his friend, and finds out he has a bulletproof vest, right?
Yeah,
And luckily he didn't he went back and reread he put together that letter and read it and kept it for all those years until he needed the time to to put it into play. Um, and I guess he didn't count on the off chance if the going back in that classic Dumb and Dumber lines, like what if they shot him in the head though, right?
yeah. They shot you in the face.
Yeah, and also considering like that gun was a pretty like powerful gun that they shot him with. I mean, I'm not a a gun expert, but I don't know if I don't think bulletproof vests prevent all types of bullets not getting through.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to bet that Libyan terrorists who buy plutonium probably have effective arms.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I guess there's a lot of questions like that you can you can get into, but no. So Marty is happy. Doc is alive. He goes back home and everything goes back to normal until in the morning when he finds out, oh shit, I altered the whole future of mine, but to the good, right? He's
Yeah,
his parents are seems a lot happier. Biff is sort of, I guess, working for them, right? He's cleaning their car, or I guess he always worked for them, right? In a way.
he.
No, he didn't,
Yeah,
right? They work
I was gonna
together.
say I
They,
don't understand how in the beginning are they work together or
they
what?
work together, and then now he sort of works for them, or he does his car, or yeah, I don't know.
Seems like he just does shit around the house,
Yeah, yeah.
which
Uh,
I think a lot of people brought up the weirdness of bringing back the guy that tried to rape
Rape
the
his
mom,
mom.
right?
Yeah, yeah. Why would you want that guy around? But I guess it was the
Right.
'50s, right? Like people sort of just forgot. Like, like he was drunk. They all try to rape you. I don't know. I don't know how the mom justified having that guy around. Um,
Well, like a lot like Hollywood,
uh,
10,
uh,
10 years ago.
and then the movie ends with Doc coming back from the future, and telling them that they have to go back. They have to, there's something wrong with their kids, and then the movie ends with them, going into the future. Which what's interesting is at the time when they made this movie, there was no plans for any sequel. So it's crazy that they ended it that way, almost like a teaser, right? But you know, it wasn't until after the movie was released and it was such a big hit that they decided to do sequel. So it was a nice ending, right? It's just a perfect ending. Even if they hadn't made more movies, that was a perfect ending to sort of leave it on.
Yeah, yeah, you could do that.
Yeah, yeah. So, but it's just the fact that they left it like that, made the sequels a little bit, it's like okay, it's a natural, send off to a sequel. So, obviously they go back to they go to the future in the sequels and in part two at least and see what happened and why their kids were all fucked up.
Yeah.
So
Couldn't he? I mean, I don't want to get into part two, but couldn't he have just told them like, "Hey, make sure your kids aren't fucked up. Like, raise your kids better."
well, I think the key was he needed Marty to help him stop his son from robbing. What was it, the bank?
Yeah, but I
So
understand. It's kind of the same.
yeah, I guess. But I mean, I guess it's easier for him to like stop that event than Doc giving Marty a lesson on fatherhood, right? uh,
It's easier just to use a time machine than raise your kids.
exactly. Yeah, I guess. All right, John. So let's get to before we go, let's get down to what do you want to do? Let's do let's go back and look at some of the some of those like I want to say inconsistencies, but things that make you go right. So it's like we talked about like why are these two guys friends, right? That's one thing that that's always obviously it's been brought up in jokes and other things, but why are they friends? Doesn't really make sense. And it doesn't this movie
It's
has
like he's kind of like, do his parents ever mention the Doc Brown?
No, I don't think they ever do.
I know, like even the principal's like, you've been hanging out with that wacky Doc again. He doesn't say it like that. But,
Yeah. Maybe they
like,
do. They just never mention. Maybe it's just like concern and they don't want to talk about
like, like the village crazy man.
it. Yeah. I mean, I think he's known. I mean, I'm sure the parents knew of him back back in the 50s. You get the. I mean, there's newspaper articles written about him, right? So.
Yeah.
Um,
What I wanted, well, I don't really get into, but I thought was, which I'm sure you know, who was a guy that they filmed like 6 weeks with another guy, right?
Okay, yeah, we can talk about that a little bit. So, that's another crazy thing. The fact that for 6 weeks
They filmed like half the movie with
for
them,
6 weeks they filmed with Eric Stoltz was so essentially what happened is Michael J. Fox was always the first option, but what happened is he was during that time he was on a hit TV show, Family Ties, and they wouldn't let him out of that commitment because it was a big show, and the schedule didn't work, so they had to go with somebody else. So they went with Eric Stoltz, which is interesting because they started filming with him and the original actor that was gonna play Biff, because they were not getting Eric Stoltz, who's a little bit bigger than Michael J. Fox. It didn't work with the original actor they wanted for Biff, so they had to recast Biff because they needed somebody who was gonna be bigger than Eric Stoltz. So that way it's more convincing. So the fact that they hired Eric Stoltz initially helped get the actor who played Biff the part because he just was bigger. But no, you're right. They did 6 weeks of shoots, and after 6 weeks, they realized this movie's not gonna work. They realized the guy was really like dark. I think Eric Stoltz had like a very dark take on Marty McFly.
I know it's out there because I heard this is a little while ago an interview with the guy who plays Biff. I don't know the guy's name, but
Thomas Wilson. Yeah.
Yeah, he was just talking about when they called them all in and they thought they were getting fired or he was getting fired.
Yeah.
But I guess this guy was like, I think the way he made it sound was funny. I forget who was interviewing him. He was saying like this guy was a method actor, I guess.
Yeah.
Just driving everybody crazy.
He didn't want anybody calling him Eric, so everybody called him Marty.
Yeah, they said, but the only one he would like break character for was Leah Thompson because he wanted to fuck her.
Yeah.
So I thought that was funny. They said like he was the method actor for everyone except her.
Yeah, and at the time she was dating Dennis Quaid.
Oh really?
Yeah.
And they said this scene where he pushes him in the diner. It is the diner, right? Yeah, where he pushes him. He said like he was pushed like he was getting all bruised up, and he kept telling him to lighten up on it. And,
yeah.
Like it was just getting ridiculous to where he said he was waiting for the scene where he was gonna pull him out of the car, and he said he was gonna hurt him.
Yeah, he never got to do that scene.
Yeah, they never got to film it.
Yeah.
But
no, yeah.
That's a lot of shooting without to start over with another guy.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is funny that story, and he did say that when they told him we had to let Eric go, he was a little confused because he never knew him by Eric. He knew him by Marty because of like you mentioned he's a method actor. So that's funny. So yeah, I mean it's a lot of it's crazy how this movie could have been if if they didn't commit to like what, no, fuck this, we don't care. It's been 6 weeks.
They wanted him first.
Yeah, they wanted him first. Yeah. And it got to the point where they were so desperate they knew, hey, this movie's not gonna work with Eric, that they obviously they went back and reshot 6 weeks worth of filming, which is very expensive, and then they offered Michael J. Fox even more money so that he was more willing to essentially work two jobs at the same time.
Well, they said he would get off of that. He would literally shoot Back to the Future till 4 a.m. I
Yeah.
think, and then at 6 a.m. he would start shooting Family Ties.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they did that for a couple of months.
Yeah. And I always they could get
Not,
away with
not
it.
that I feel bad. I mean, they're making a lot of money, but
Yeah. Yeah, he's
they
fine.
said they would have to. This is I. This is when I was going through YouTube stuff and reading it.
Hmm.
Yeah, they said he would get in 2 hours of sleep, and they would have to carry him
Yeah, no, it's
out of
crazy.
his bed.
I mean, but I
No,
mean, essentially, this is his most famous role, right? Other than Teen Wolf, this is his most famous role. So, I mean,
yeah,
I'm sure he's happy with his decision.
yeah.
Or maybe you find out
Then,
that the toll, that took on his body to contribute to his Parkinson's.
uh, actually, that's funny. I thought about that too.
um, but yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I guess you go back and look at a lot of. There's another one that I had read. I'm blanking right now on who they were thinking about. I can't remember
I
now.
know that.
For life
I
of me.
know they had a bad fallout with the other guy too, right?
Yeah, with Crispin Glover for the sequels. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He didn't want to come back, so it's crazy. They used well, actually, he sued him. They used
His
alternate
face.
alternate takes for the for those obviously those shots where he goes back again to 55 in the sequel, and actually it created a now there's a I don't want to say a law or there's a ruling where yeah I think it's a law where they can't do that. They can't use a liker's act sort of likeness without compensating them. So
Yeah, I know
because he
he
ended up suing him.
won, but I think he might have screwed his career up doing it.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's one of those. Yeah, Crispin Glover's career really wasn't ever the same after that. Um, but yeah, he's an odd guy. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was gonna say. So yeah, I mean, before we go, obviously, one of the things that we always go over is and this movie has a lot of them, so I won't go over every one of them, but going over famous quotes. Right, this movie is filled with them. Things that we say a lot too. I think part two has a lot of them too, which is one of those weird, like the sequel has as probably as many or maybe sometimes more memorable lines, but this one's obviously full of it. So I wanted to play some instead of me saying it. I don't, I want to give it a little bit of justice. So let me share my. I have to share it differently so you can hear the audio too, along with the people at home.
Just reenact the whole movie.
Let's see. I want to share this, but that way you can hear the sound at least. All right. Okay. So I'm gonna play this first.
I just saw the movie. Why?
Nah. Actually, this one. This one's one of those underrated ones. It's where the father, actually the grandfather is talking. They meet with Marty. Actually, one of my. This is one of those underrated lines.
He's a very strange young man.
He's an idiot. Comes from upbringing. His parents are probably idiots too. Lorraine, you ever have a kid who acts that way, I'll disown you.
Yeah. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's
They can,
it's
they can watch Jackie Gleason while they eat.
yeah. I like how he's so excited about that, right? Yeah. Here's another one. Actually, this one maybe I forgot about this one. Well, actually, no, I did remember it, but it's one of those like you forget it until you hit that scene, and you're like, oh, he's gonna say this line. It's when Marty goes back and he gets back to the 1985, and he runs into the that porno theater, and then this is the drunk driver's reaction. I mean the drunk's reaction. Can you hear it? It seems like really low.
That was low.
Okay. It was louder earlier. Yeah, it's probably a little low. I wonder why it's playing so low.
That's when the guys would crash on the bench, right?
Yeah, when he crashed into the... let's see. Shit, these might be a little low. I wonder why they came out so low.
Yeah.
Yeah. Give me a tab.
Tab, I can't give you a tab. It's your order.
All right, give me a Pepsi free. You want a Pepsi, pal? You're gonna pay
I
for it.
Yeah.
I still think the thing that's bothered me the most is the fact that he goes that 10 minutes back in time
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
he could have given himself more time. But then I still have that problem with running into his alternate self
Right. Yeah.
because that would derail everything.
Yeah. Actually, let's do this one right here. Let me do it again. Still a little low. Thought I fixed it. Or maybe it's just a low. There you go. It's just, I don't know. It's just a funny line. I think it's funnier in the context when he's and then actually this is another one. Underrated, I think.
Future boy. Who's president of the United States in 1985?
Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan, the actor.
You forget. I didn't look it up. Like, how famous was Ronald Reagan as an actor though? Like, I know he was known when he was running for president. Like, oh, he was an actor, but I mean, was he that known? Where it's like, oh, the actor.
I don't know. You got to talk to old people where they act like he was.
Oh, this one always gonna be laugh with the principal.
You've got a real attitude
I don't think
problem,
anybody
McFly.
knew
You're a
who
slacker.
Donald Trump was before
You
this.
remind me of your father when he
What's
was.
that?
You've got a real
I
attitude.
don't think anybody knew who Donald Trump was before this.
You've got a real attitude problem, McFly. You're a slacker. You remind me of your father when he went here. He was a slacker too.
It's just his attitude. And then getting down to the more famous ones. I think this one I think is one of your favorites.
Calculations are correct. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
And then I think I want to say this is your because you always repeat it. This next one right here.
Hey, Doc, we better back up. We don't have enough road to get up to 88.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Funny how sexist this movie is, right?
Why?
That's a second.
And then I have this one, which I think the most repeated line, and it's one of those that's interesting. But this line is I don't think it was ever used before. I don't know if this expression existed before this movie, but there's two words that get used a lot in this movie, and it's by Doc Brown, and it's him saying "Great Scott," all right? So
Yeah.
I figure I play a clip of him saying "Great Scott" from I think essentially every movie.
Great Scott! Great Scott!
Yeah. Nah, I never heard it before.
Great Scott! 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 I know this is heavy.
So those are some of the more quotable lines in the movie.
I can play every time Samuel Jackson says motherfucker.
Yeah.
The
Actually, you know what? I have one more, and I'll show you because I find Doc's explanation, like pretty funny. Let me see. Can you hear that?
yeah.
Okay, let me go back to the scene in question. It's them going back to the school, and Doc's seeing his interaction with his father.
It happens in hospitals when nurses fall in love with their patients.
Let me fast forward a little
Saved
bit.
your life, dear?
Calvin!
Good. Fine.
Oh, I've been painful.
Doc, she didn't even look at him.
This is more serious than I thought. Apparently your mother is amorously infatuated with you instead of your father.
Whoa, wait a minute. Doc, are you trying to tell me that my mother has got the hots for me?
Precisely.
Whoa, this is heavy.
There's that word again, heavy. Why are things so heavy in the future? Is there a problem with the Earth's gravitational pull?
I just like it's like appears your mom's
Yeah.
amorously infatuated with you. Always talking like a
Yeah.
scientist.
Your mom's a horse, son.
Yeah. That line always that's just the whole exchange just cracks me up. Like it's a man clearly, he's a man of science. He doesn't really find a wife until part 3, right? That's when he gets married. So I mean, who knows what he did during all those years of, not inventing anything, right?
Go back and yeah.
You know what, John? Before we go,
It's a time machine to get laid.
right? I thought I had it bad, but this fucker had to like create the greatest invention of mankind to finally get laid. No, before we go, looking back on it, it is one of those made at the right.
When I say sexist, I'm talking about the like shit like this.
Like what?
Like just like after he's already danced with her, like this guy's just
Oh,
cutting in.
yeah.
And I'm just like they really do treat the women really shitty.
These
back-
guys feel very entitled to women sexually, right?
yeah, it's not even Biff anymore. It's just some character we've never seen.
Yeah.
It's just like, hey, let me get some of that. And
Right.
he just jumps in at the dance and just like, almost basically ruins everything.
Right.
And it's just like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
She's screaming, help me.
And nobody
in
on the
middle-
dance floor is
and nobody, no one's paying attention.
Yeah, nobody gives a fuck.
In the middle of a dance.
No. Yeah, that is funny. But before we go, John, I want to look at like a what if. It's interesting that, I think this movie was, made at the right time, right? So you look at nostalgia, it's essentially it's playing on nostalgia, right? 50s nostalgia. So you look at, I think it's a lot of it's psychological, and obviously just the timing, but you look at, when people look back on certain decades, when did they do it? Usually it's about 30 years, right? So 85, 30 years back was the 50s. You saw, a show like Happy Days made in the late 70s, be successful even into the 80s. But because, usually we go back 30 years with nostalgia, it works, right? And it makes sense on popular culture because, people who grew up in that era, by the time, 30 years comes around, they're grown and they're making the art or the popular culture during that time. So they're going to look back to their childhood. So, this movie was made in the perfect time, the 80s, looking back at a time where, it's considered, sort of, more quaint times, right? The 50s, there's nothing more wholesome in the 50s. But, this movie, it'll be interesting, if it was made in a different time. Like, I think if it was made in the 90s, it wouldn't have been as effective. Because then he would have gone back into the 60s, and you get, it gets messy because, he's going into, middle of the Vietnam War. Kennedy getting assassinated. It's not going to be a fun time for him to go back in time, right? And
I mean, it could have just gone back 35 years.
but it's not the same. People do look at back.
People don't like math with odd numbers.
No, it's not just the 30 years, but there is a reason in the 90s. The 60s were so popular, right? You saw a lot of 60s nostalgia, and in 2000 you started seeing a little bit more of the the 70s.
I don't remember where I got it, but I remember having a little DeLorean, just like a tiny one, almost like the kind you get like in a McDonald's toy that you could just like where you keep rolling it, against the ground and letting it go.
Yeah, one of those like you roll them back. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember having one of those. I don't remember where I got it.
Yeah, but like
honestly, I probably got it Universal Studios.
That makes sense, right? But they had the Universal, right? I mean the Universal, right? The Back to the Future, right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I got it from one of those.
You said you rode that ride, right?
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah,
I rode it a couple of times.
I never got to ride it. By the time I went to Universal Studios, finally they already had tore it down. They replaced it with the Simpsons ride. Which
it's probably one of those things where it's just technology's gotten so much better.
Well,
Because I mean, it seemed so real at the time, but you're also it's like so did GoldenEye back in the day.
yeah, what's interesting is they didn't. The only thing they really changed was the footage because if you go back, I mean, I never got on the ride, but looking back at the way it looked, if have you gone back and gotten on the Simpsons ride?
I haven't been since they added the Simpsons Park.
So it's interesting. The Simpsons ride, essentially, it's the same ride as the Back to the Future. It's the same platform. You start off in a vehicle and then it raises you up, and then the screen's like a dome. So looking YouTubing and different stuff they essentially explain that the whole ride sort of apparatus is the same as the Back to the Future. The only thing they changed obviously was the car itself. It's no longer a DeLorean, and then obviously the footage.
How many people could they fit in it?
One vehicle you can fit six, three and
How
three.
many how many vehicles did they have there?
Probably at a time you can fit 8 vehicles, I think. So they raise it up, and then it's a big dome screen.
So they had 8 vehicles that fit 6 people each?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I remember at the time, yeah, they had, I don't know, just 2 or 3 DeLoreans.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Actually, they probably did have more. You just didn't see them.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, you weren't able to see them. I think they had the same amount of vehicles.
Because I remember there would be one, and it's like you're in this, this group goes to this one, this group goes to that one.
Yeah, they have the same thing. You go to different rooms.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I'm just remembering 2 at a time because I remember writing it a few times because I liked it a lot.
yeah, obviously. How many? I was gonna say, how was the queue? Like, was it like themed, like pretty cool, or like where you wait? Like, did you go through and had a bunch of Back to the Future stuff, or?
Nothing that fancy.
Oh, okay.
Nothing that memorable.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's just like art on the walls and shit while you're waiting.
Okay. No,
But,
yeah, that's one thing. Actually, on I think on the Blu-ray, and it might be something I have to look back on my DVD. They actually have the full footage of the ride itself, like whatever footage they showed.
Yeah. No, the footage was cool.
Yeah, you go back in time, right? Like into like the dinosaur era.
Yeah, I was gonna say you fly through dinosaurs and shit.
You're like chasing Biff, right?
Yeah, you're chasing. I was gonna say you're chasing another. He's in like another vehicle, I think.
Yeah, another DeLorean, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's pretty cool. No. So I was gonna say it's.
I mean, that was tech a long time ago, so I imagine it's gotten much better.
Well, I think it's more the footage. They updated the footage. The ride itself, I don't think they really have improved on. You're moving around, right? So I mean, that's gonna stay the same. There's you can only improve so much on physics, right? So
Yeah.
no, but I was gonna say going back to the time period it went. If you say you were to release this movie, you're gonna make it today, and you wanted to sort of go, you couldn't really do 50s because the 50s don't really, people today can't really relate to it. It's been so long. I mean, there's a reason it's 30 years, right? So you sort of seen the 80s sort of take, prevalence in terms of, the nostalgia factor. People have gone back, you see Stranger Things, about, the middle of this decade. This makes sense, right? 30 years. So, what?
I like it when they do it, but they don't milk it too much.
Yeah. So it's interesting. What if we were to they were to make Back in the Future right now? They would go back to the 80s, right? So it would be interesting the effect of that, how that would, what the what if, like who would be Marty McFly today? What actor you think would most fit that role of like young actors today?
So that's how out of the loop, man. Who are the young actors?
I'm throwing stuff out there. I think if this was maybe 5 years ago, before he got like sort of.
I was gonna say all of them are like they were, and now they've. Well, who are you gonna say?
Well, I was gonna say maybe 5 years ago, before he got all like muscular, maybe like a Zac Efron could have played Marty McFly. But I'm thinking like today, maybe I'm sort of pulling this from, stuff that they already done on the internet. I don't know if you've seen somebody did like a sort of like a deep fake where they put remember the actor who
Okay.
played Spider-Man in the new Spider-Man, Tom Holland. They
Uh, yeah.
yeah, they did one of those where he was playing Marty McFly, and actually Robert Downey Jr. was playing Doc Brown, and then they put their faces on some of the footage. So you know what, I was like, you know what, I could see Tom Holland playing. He's a young guy, sort of similar
Yeah.
build, maybe a little too tall, but I mean he's similar build, sort of scrawny kind of guy. He wouldn't be a bad actor.
Yeah.
But what? There's a lot of parallels that you can sort of look at. Look, going back to that line where, Doc is asking Marty like, oh, who's president, right? And he's like, Ronald Reagan. He's like the actor. So you can sort of apply even that line a little bit easier, right? If you were to, go back from right now to the '80s, like who's the president? It's like Donald Trump. It's like the real estate guy, like the failed real estate guy. It's like it's even as incredulous, right? Looking back at that, like not much things change, right?
Like game show host?
Yeah, well, he wasn't a game show host at the time in the '80s, so it'd probably just be like
No.
he was
I
famous. He
know.
was more. What was he famous in '85 for? It's just real estate, right? And
Just being a rich
asshole.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say a rich man
Yeah.
that loved himself.
Yeah. And like, what would be the equivalent? Like, what would Marty invent? What type of music would he invent in the '80s? That would be it's like okay, that makes sense. What was maybe he would play some Nirvana, right? Invent.
Not for today. as
No,
a
no, no. But I
teenager.
mean, like the equivalent
Yeah.
of Johnny Be Good.
If it was today, going back to the 80s.
Yeah. So like, he's essentially inventing a genre of music that wasn't too far off. Probably be like Nirvana, right? Playing something like that. It was a little bit ahead of his time in '85, or late '80s.
That's true. 'Cause
Would you
he's
still?
not playing. He's not playing like Johnny Be Good. Not something new that he's playing.
Nah. And then
Like
like
I'm saying, even in the 80s.
and then even more importantly, what would be the car they would use as a time vehicle? I have something in
Probably
I have something in
probably
mind.
a Tesla.
I thought the same thing. I was saying, a Tesla would be the only equivalent. You have to pick a sort of a weird car that not many people have, right? Sort of futuristic looking at the DeLorean was sort of futuristic looking at in '85. Tesla is the same thing now, and it's probably always gonna look futuristic, right? The Tesla, just like the DeLorean, even now still sort of looks futuristic, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. No, I'm just saying I couldn't answer that question about whether it's always going to look futuristic.
Yeah.
'Cause there is nothing about, I don't know. Like to me, some Teslas look like Ferraris,
That's
like
true.
for a second.
That's
But
true.
I'm just saying, DeLorean, nothing looks like that.
No, it's pretty unique.
It's probably a reason they don't make them. They weren't great cars.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, what else? I'm trying to go back. Something that would be equivalent. I mean, the president thing would work. It's a little like to tell somebody, back in '85 that Donald Trump's gonna be president. That's, I think if we, maybe we might went back 5 years, but it wouldn't work the same because nobody would know who Barack Obama was, so the joke wouldn't fall as well. Because then you have to say, oh, he's black, but it'll be sort of awkward to mention he's black, right? Because you wouldn't think about it being that crazy of somebody back then. But like, it has to be somebody famous 30 years ago that you would never imagine being president. So right now would be a perfect time to have that same parallel, right? Because that joke would work just like it worked in '85. See what else. I mean, what else would you have to change though for it to apply to today and '85? Maybe the dance. Maybe they they fell in love at a mall. I don't know. Instead of a dance, because they still have dance. I guess they did, right? All those '80s teen comedies. They're going to dances, right? So
usually that was a big part of the movie.
Yeah. So that would still work. The fact that they would have to meet at a dance. But you know the one thing that wouldn't work in today's world though.
Everyone, we're gonna meet on a Zoom conference call.
Well, this is 85, so.
Yeah.
Um, you know the one aspect that would probably be a little like questionable that you might not be able to get away with today is the whole why is this kid hanging out with this old guy, right? In today's world of online predators and stranger danger, like I don't know if that aspect would still work.
I think they start with the obvious incest that they talk about.
Yeah, but I mean
Well,
that was weird even back then though. I mean they made the whole joke about it.
yeah,
I mean I don't
it
think
got
that would,
rejected a lot, right?
was that.
I said the script got rejected a lot, right?
No, actually, I think what helped is the fact that they had Spielberg's backing because he was an executive producer.
I could be wrong, but I thought I like 40 something times.
Maybe, but like I said,
I know Disney was the one that said it was too incestual. That's why.
yeah, that is true. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I mean, it is a tough pill to swallow, but I mean, it was back then, so I mean, I'm sure. I don't think it would be. You would still get the same, sort of, today, but I mean, it's, like you said, I don't think it would be any different from '85. The same reaction. I don't know what else. What else would trans? The only thing that you're missing is the fact that, like I mentioned, the '50s was such a like a wholesome, time, so that, it'll be a weird like, I guess that the one thing you would be able to show is the '80s were a little different, right? Where you can show like the obvious differences, like malls were still popular, video arcades were still around and popular.
You kind of look at like what they did in Austin Powers, going back to the '70s,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they try to exploit all that stuff.
No, it was the '60s.
Was it the '60s?
Yeah, remember it was the '90s that they made this in. Remember 30 years, John?
Okay.
Yeah, it's
I don't
always
know
30
why.
years.
Okay, I don't know why I thought it was the '70s.
No,
But
remember the '60s were the swinging
I'm
age.
just not. Yeah, I'm just not a huge fan of those movies.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to think of something where it's like where they're trying to exploit every '60s stereotype or
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
or of whatever time.
Yeah. I think right now would probably be the closest we can get to it being somewhat similar to the '85 to '55, because the '80s were sort of unique and you can show like a lot of differences. You know.
I feel like they're just trying to do it in general just to bring in a bigger audience now.
Yeah, but I'm surprised that they haven't thought of just redoing it. Right? It's been 35 years. I mean, that's the reason. Usually, you'll see remakes about every 30 years because you have to. People, they want to update it. And it seems blasphemous to us because we grew up watching it. But I think today's audience, they wouldn't mind seeing if they remade this. It wouldn't be that big of a deal to them. Anybody who didn't grow up watching this movie, some of the younger generation.
Sounds risky.
Yeah.
But
I mean, they're remaking Top Gun, right? Or they're making a sequel.
yeah, but what helps is you have Tom Cruise.
Yeah, I guess.
It's crazy. That guy just never goes away.
And much like Christopher Lloyd looks the same as he did in the '80s, which is even odder.
Looks younger.
Yeah. I mean, at least Christopher Lloyd just looks old, right? He just constantly looks like he's been that age for 50 years. But Tom Cruise, sort of got stuck in a weird young. But the thing is, he looks like an old young guy.
He looks like he's like in his early 40s, but forever.
Yeah. But I don't know. And I guess who would play the terrorist? Because that's another hard pill to swallow now. It's like they make them Libyans. Like, could you get away with that in today's age? Like who would you make the guys that are coming after Doc Brown?
I don't know.
It's like illegal immigrants in today's environment. I don't know. What would be the most politically correct way?
trying to say they're the ones that gave him the
The plutonium.
plutonium?
I don't know. It's like, well, who knows? Like, I
Those
mean, were
are,
Libyans really that?
you said it.
Were Libyans really that? That resourceful in terms of getting able to get plutonium? I don't know. Like, I don't know even if that's accurate, but no, it's just thinking out loud. What trying to connect how you did today, but
I don't think we could do Libya anymore.
yeah, but no, it's just something to think about, right? You're trying to look at would it work in
I don't think
today's
it'll ever happen, but weren't there some talks of them trying to actually do it?
like remake it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's too late, and I don't think it would ever happen.
yeah,
But I thought for a little while they were talking about actually doing it, but
yeah. It just, I mean, you can make it work. I mean, I'm not. I mean, I obviously this movie still gonna exist, or even if they remake it, but,
you
but
still did. I mean, you still in the last year or so, you still had a Terminator movie with Schwarzenegger and
yeah, I think
Linda.
I think the biggest difference though is Zemeckis, him and Bob Gale still own the rights, and I think they've said like they don't want to remake it, so they said they'll never authorize a remake or a reboot as long as they're alive. So I think that's the biggest difference. I don't think James Cameron. I think he sold his rights a long time ago, or I don't even know if he ever had the rights to Terminator. So, um, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how any of that works.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah. So we probably won't see that, but it's just an interesting exercise to go through. I think you can if you really work. If they really were trying to do it, I think they can make it work. Right? It wouldn't be that crazy, but, yeah. It's hard.
Yeah,
It's just
you can't do like a scene by scene remake.
no, and I think what makes this the concept itself that we talked about, it's crazy, right? The fact that they were able to make this movie successful, but a lot of it's attributed to the execution, and it's hard to replicate that, right? Replicate the casting, replicate, it's just the director, being the right director, and finding knowing if I execute it this way, it's gonna work, even no matter how absurd some of the plot points are.
Byron Scott Baio, or what's his name?
Eric Stoltz. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Firing Eric Stoltz. Having the balls to do that, right? 6 weeks into filming.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just trying to replicate that, all over again. It would be pretty hard. So, will never happen again. We'll never see this, the fact that this movie isn't based on a comic book, isn't based on a book, isn't based on a previous story. It's a completely original concept for a movie like that to become this big of a hit. Is sort of crazy, right? It's not based on anything. Like you go back at all the other blockbusters, you can sort of say it's based on something. Jaws being the first blockbuster, it's based on a book. The Indiana.
I don't even know that.
Yeah, the Indiana Jones. I believe it's based on a book. The Indiana Jones movies are based on like those those old 40 serial movies that Spielberg and George Lucas were obsessed about. Every big hit you can sort of say it's based on something, but this movie is completely an original idea. There's nothing that they're basing this on. So the fact that this became such a big hit is very rare. Titanic's based on a historical event.
Wait,
trying to think of all the big blockbusters.
He didn't make up Titanic?
Which, I don't know, like even like Jurassic Park, a book, right? I'm trying to think of like the big hits. Obviously this decade they've all been based on comic books, right? So I mean,
too many.
So I mean, every big blockbuster, it's based on something we've had knowledge about before. Book, historical event, something, a remake, right? Usually, something. But this movie is very rare you see this. A completely original idea. From what we know, this isn't based on a historical event. It wasn't a book. So it's I think that's just it endears it even more as being such a unique movie in history.
Probably just the franchise in general was nice.
Yeah, yeah. The fact that the way they did it, I don't know if it had been done before. You see it done now, semi regularly. The fact that they, hey, once they greenlit the sequels, we're gonna shoot them back to back, right? I don't know if that had ever been done before, where they just they went ahead and shot movies back to back.
So they shot the second and third back to back.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you see that thing, I think I've asked before, that trailer at the end, was that in theaters?
no, that's they showed that they added that for like the VHS release.
Okay, I was like, that would have been cool in theaters to see
No,
the trailer for the next one.
no. In fact, that you would see it on, and I think they started taking it away. You saw that in the VHS release. They would put to be continued.
Yeah.
That wasn't in theaters, obviously, because when they made it, they didn't realize they're gonna make a sequel. So it wasn't until after it got released.
So much money.
Right? No, but you're right. But no, it wasn't until after it became a huge hit. They greenlit the sequels. So, and the sequels didn't come until 4 years later. So, it took a while before they even got to that. So,
all that contract negotiation.
But yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. I mean, it's great movie. Like I said, it's in my personal top 10 of my favorite movies of all time. It's up there. Probably continue rewatching it until I die, John. In fact, this is the last movie I want to watch before I die. So, as soon as I'm having that, yeah.
So, you ever wake up and you're in a room, you don't remember how you got there, and the movie starts playing.
Right.
You know that's it.
That's it. All right, I can set my watch to like, okay, it's over now. All right, that's all the time we have. We will see you next time. Bye bye.